Hello readers, I'm Amy. Thought I would get out of my library for the day and hang out on the porch with the kitties for a little bit. This is where they seem to spend most of their afternoons. So I thought I'd just do like an easier, chatty little video. I was watching, was it Angelica Nyquist? I watch a lot of makeup videos whenever I'm getting ready in the morning. Surprise, surprise. And she was doing a video. It was like, if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes in my collection, which ones would they be? So I thought, if I could only keep 10 books, which ones could they possibly be? I'm sure that longtime subscribers and close friends of mine will already know at least 2 of the books, possibly 3, if you've been watching me more recently. But I'm going to start off with the obvious ones and work my way from there. So first off, can anyone guess? Dracula by Bram Stoker, my favorite classic. I tried to pick... Excuse you. I tried to pick the books in this collection across a bunch of genres, so not necessarily my favorite books of all time, but more like if I only had 10 books to read, I don't want them to be all in the same genre because I feel like that would feel a little stale. So, Dracula by Bram Stoker, my favorite classic. You've got travel, you've got vampires, castles, old London, an adventure on a boat, just all sorts of crazy, creepy stuff in this gothic setting, which I love. Saying I love Dracula, I feel like, is an understatement at this point. And next up, put it at the bottom of this pile, Jurassic Park. I have 3 copies of this book, and I have like 5 copies of Dracula. But Jurassic Park would definitely be one of those. I feel like a more advanced version of this would be, which version of Jurassic Park would I keep? It would probably be the very first copy that I ever bought of it, even though it's taped together to hold it into one piece. But Jurassic Park, again, you've got travel, you've got adventure, you've got science, which I love reading fiction about science. It's so interesting and creative, and I don't know quite enough about science to kind of ruin the story for me, so that's good. Michael Crichton and Jurassic Park, like, this was the first book that I ever read that got me into science fiction, so I'll forever be grateful for that. I love dinosaurs. We have the Museum of the Rockies about, 2 or 3 hours from here, and in Bozeman, whenever Chris and I first met, a lot of our dates were just going to the dinosaur exhibit at the museum, like the nerds that we are. So just so many memories, and I love the adventure, and there's a little bit of math in it that I can actually kind of understand. So love this, will always be a classic in my collection. Then we have one of my new additions to my favorite books ever in the world, and that is Qualityland. I had someone comment recently on a video that it's marc-uwe Kling, something like that. So I don't speak German. I will continue to practice that, but this is Qualityland. It's a science fiction book, like science fiction humor. I think it leans way more on the humor side of it, but it's about technology and kind of making fun of Amazon, and there's this pink dolphin vibrator involved, and I love this story so much. I recently got Victoria from What Victoria Read to pick up this book, which makes me really happy. So love this. So that's 2 science fictions and like a gothic paranormal classic so far. Despite what people think, life is never dull when you have cats. Next up, I have N.K. Jemisin, How Long Till Black Future Month. I love N.K. Jemison's fantasy books, and I thought that How Long Till Black Future Month would be a really good addition to my only 10 books pile, because this is a series of short stories. So you could say it's kind of cheating because it's more than one story all in one book, but I like that you'd get to shake it up a little bit. I think half of these are science fiction and half of these are fantasy. I do have standalone reviews on some of these books, which I will link in one corner or the other whichever one it is. But I love the way she writes about food. I love the way she does her world building. How Long Till Black Future Month is actually the name of an essay that she wrote before this book was published, and that essay is not in this book, but she did name this book after that essay, which I think is awesome. And I think the first chapter was about a utopia and how it would deal with race and culture and everything. So love that that book would just really add some diversity in stories, just give me like more options. Then I have Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women that the movement forgot. This is the hands down best book on feminism that I have ever read. This book talks so much about things that I don't even think of as connected to feminism, like food and how it's distributed among different classes. There was like fetishization of race, how people write about Black women characters, just all sorts of stuff that I wouldn't think of when considering feminist aspects. And for that, like, this is by far best book on feminism I've ever read. One that I would want in my collection of 10 books so that I could keep coming back to it and keep reading and keep kind of refreshing myself on what more work needs to be done, which there's always work that needs to be done, but this just points out some things that I don't think about and that I need to. One book that I would add to this pile that I don't actually own is a recent read of mine, Dial A For Aunties. This is just such a fun, like, murder and mystery. It's not a murder mystery because you know who did the murder, but there's murder, there's a mystery, there's a wedding, there's family, and all of that craziness. The fact that they're like a wedding planning group trying to take care of this murder, it was so much fun. And considering the books that I have on the pile so far, I really need something that is light and fun. Speaking of light and fun, I would also add to this pile a book that I got for Christmas from Hillary from Melted Books, and that is Fangs by Sarah Anderson. If you look at some of the artwork in here, you'll probably recognize the artist from maybe like some of those Facebook clips and stuff. But this is a kind of romance graphic novel following a vampire and a werewolf, and it's super cute. I like that graphic novels are pretty quick reads. I like looking at the artwork. It's just a really cute story. It's a way to add vampires to my collection, which we know I am always trying to do. Next up, I have The Flicker of Old Dreams. This is one, I picked it out because it's one that's always in the back of my mind. This was recommended to me by a subscriber. We are following a, is it mortician? Embalmer. We're following an embalmer who works at her father's mortuary in a small town, which I love a good small town story. And there's this like accidental death that took place years ago and blame being tossed around. And our main character is trying to decide, do I even belong in this small town anymore? What am I doing here? And growing up in a small town myself, it's just a book that I keep coming back to. I love the writing. I actually picked up, is it called Up from the Blue? I picked up one of her other books at a bookstore recently that I want to dive into and see if I end up loving it as much as this one. Next up, I have another gothic book, and that will be Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I couldn't complete a collection of only 10 books to keep without including something from du Maurier. Rebecca is one of her most famous classics. It is my favorite of all of the ones that I've read. I've loved everything that I've read from her so far, but Rebecca was that first book of hers that I've read, and it's special. I like that you don't ever know the name of the main character. I like that it's got this sort of ghost of memory feel to it. I love a good gothic tale. I love a good Daphne du Maurier, and I had to include her on this list. Very last one is going to be Stephen King, and that is Needful Things. This is the first Stephen King book I read that I really, really loved and had to put it on this list. Needful Things follows several characters throughout this small town, and we have this mysterious stranger who arrives to town and opens up this shop. And as an example, I'll talk about one of the characters, a little boy who is really into baseball, particularly this one baseball player. And he goes to the shop and finds a perfect condition baseball card signed by this baseball player. But in reality, it's a really old baseball card. You can hardly read what's written on it. It's really poorly taken care of. It's not really worth anything. But all this boy sees is this perfect condition card. And the way he pays for this is whatever money he happens to have available and a favor for the man who runs the shop. And with all of these favors that pile up and all of these people thinking like, oh, that person's acting weird. Why do they have that old crummy item on them all the time? You just have this town start attacking itself and just really awesome group dynamics. I think that's where Stephen King really shows his strength, is in group dynamics and how different people react to one another. By far my favorite Stephen King, first Stephen King book I read that I ever really fell in love with, so this would have to be in my pile of 10. That is going to be it, so please let me know what would be on your list if you could only keep 10 books, and why did you choose those books? I'm pretty happy with like the genre and story variety that I have going on here. So please like, subscribe, follow my kitty cats and I on social media. We are always ready to make some new friends, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.